you, but for those of you who I don't know, I'm Meredith Comey, and I am the Head of the Citizens Advisory Committee New Jersey co-chair, and I also run the Oyster Restoration Program for New York, New Jersey Riverkeeper. So this session is on implementing a citizens water monitoring program, which I find this panel to be really interesting because we at Riverkeeper use a lot of citizens to help out in our work. Okay, so first up, we're going to look at some citizen science case studies, and we have Tracy Brown from Riverkeeper. I'll just give you a real quick snippet of her bio. She's the Riverkeeper's water quality advocate, and she has helped to design and build a citizen science program that samples 7 tributaries of the Hudson.
All right, thanks for having me. My slides. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Riverkeeper water quality testing program, what we do, and what some of our findings are about water quality in the Hudson, and then I'm going to talk about our citizen science efforts and opportunities for water quality. So every good study should start with a question. There should be a question or a problem that you're trying to answer or solve, and for us that question was the most common one that we get from the public when we're out on the Hudson, which is, how's the water? And when people are asking how's the water, they really want to know, if I swim, will I get sick? And this is a great question to be answering on the Hudson because it is reflective of decades of hard work that has been done to eliminate a lot of the really nasty industrial pollutants that kept people out of the Hudson. So the fact that it's clean enough that people are asking, can I swim, where can I swim, how often can I swim, is a reflection of how far that we've come. But definitely one of our remaining really tricky pollutants at this point is fecal contamination, often from sewage, can also be from livestock. And generally, if you have fecal contamination or sewage in the water, the pathogens that make you sick are increased, and you can get a variety of illnesses, a laundry list of illnesses that fall into 3 categories: viruses, bacteria, or parasites. So in order to answer this question, first we looked at what is the available information that's out there. Can we just kind of look this up and do a little research and tell people? And we found out that there's actually very little information about fecal contamination in the Hudson. So this is a little map that shows you who's testing for this particular pollutant in the Hudson and who isn't. So you have 4 counties that test in New York City. The rest aren't testing at all, and the ones that are testing typically are testing just at a beach location. So you have 4 official beaches in the Hudson River Estuary, and then in New York City, of course, outside of the lower harbor, you have a bunch of public beaches. So this is what's going on. You have 4 beaches, and you have 4 counties testing. Typically, it's once a week. Sometimes it's less. And the only one of these groups that's publishing their data to the public is New York City. So we set about in 2006 to set up our study. We partnered with scientists at Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory at Columbia University and also at CUNY Queens. And they helped us design the study and they helped us execute it and analyze our findings. So what we do is these are all of our sampling sites. We have 74 sites, and then we also add additional sites based on our interests and incidents. Those are exploratory sites. But every month, once a month, we patrol the full 153 miles of the estuary just for our sampling patrol. It takes about 5 days. And we collect a sample at each of these locations, same location every time. And we test for the fecal indicating bacteria Enterococcus. We test for Enterococcus because it is the one indicator that we can use in both salt and fresh water. And the Hudson is an estuary system, so we don't have to change indicators at any point if we use Entero. It's also the preferred indicator, as you heard earlier, recommended by the EPA, and it's a very good indicator of pathogens and illness. So we use Entero, and we're very hopeful that New York State will adopt Entero as an indicator that they recognize in this next round of criteria review that's underway. We also check for these basic water quality parameters. at each location. And then, it's really important to going out and collecting the data, having a question that you're looking to answer, having a good process is then what do you do with that information? So you have all this information, you have all this great data. And we found that the data is very powerful, and since we started this program, it's really opened a lot of doors for us and given us a seat at the table, as they say, because the data speaks for itself. And you can have your own, kind of ideas of what you think priorities are and what communities should be doing, but data is data. And the more you gather it and have it consistent and make it transparent, the more it's going to do the work for you. So we take our data, we post it on our website as quickly as we can, which is typically within a week of collecting it. We do emails about it. We produce annual reports. We're going to have a third report coming out at the start of 2014. And then we also have, an e-list, and we do public presentations like this one, and whatever we can to share the information. And of course, a lot of meetings with stakeholders and at relevant forums. So what are we finding? Just very quickly, an overview. We basically have found, this is from our last report, so this will be updated this winter, but the findings won't be substantially different. These are big kind of trend findings I'm showing you today. So overall, if we take all the samples that we collect in the Hudson River, 24% of them have failed the EPA guideline for safe swimming. So when I say that, I just have to point out that, as we all heard, they're going to be issuing, they actually have issued new guidelines last November, and New York State is currently looking to adopt the recommended federal guidelines. So this is going to change a little, and our water quality, our next report is going to reflect the new EPA guidelines. Basically, it's kind of a weakening of the standards in fresh water and similar in drinking water. I think that's a fair characterization of what the new criteria is. So it'll be similarly about 25% failure, and then to give you a baseline comparison, New York State beaches, through the Beach Act monitoring, fail on average 70% of the time that they're sampled. So that's kind of a target of where we'd like to be for the Hudson. We heard a bunch today about stormwater, so not surprisingly, we get better conditions in our dry weather sample days and worse conditions in our wet weather. So a tripling of failed samples after and during rain events. Now this, you're not supposed to read all this from where you are, but we did bring a handout. We put it out after people arrived in the morning. It's at the back of the room. We actually have a printout of this with some more information that you can take home. But the reason I like this slide is this shows you all the 74 sites from New York Harbor up to Albany, and this shows you the variability. It's really varied what the contamination levels are by location. And the variability can be in locations really close to each other. So you could be at the Terrytown Marina and be in sewage contaminated water, and you go 3 miles down the beach to Irvington and be in clean water. So what this tells us is that the sewage and the fecal contamination is generally coming from the communities, from the shoreline, and it's staying local. And by the time it gets out and mixes in the larger system, it's being diluted and it's starting to break down. So if you want clean water in your community, you don't really have to look any farther than your own backyards and your own infrastructure to influence the water quality where you're recreating. So that's the good news. You also can see some regional trends, and I think I have a regional slide. Yeah, so I know this is a lot to look at, but I thought it'd be fun for you guys. So we also look at the data by region, and this is overall averages on the bottom line, and then the dry conditions and the wet conditions. And I included this today because it's New York, and I love this New York City one, where you see that it's a 22% failure rate in all wet and dry, and that's kind of average for our study overall. But then if you look in the dry weather, New York City has the best water quality in the whole estuary in dry weather, 7%, matching what we're seeing at recreational beaches around the country. So this is what you can do when you eliminate the influence of CSOs. And then you get your wet weather bump up to 33%, and that skews your average. You have other communities like Albany where you have a 14% even in dry weather, Bear Mountain and Catskill region, 21, or was that's 11% in dry weather. So I just think that tells that CSO story so clearly, because that's what New York City's situation is, unlike the other communities north of here, which are a mix up to Albany, which is also a big CSO community. Okay, then we can also look at our data by the types of sites. So we designed the study to be sure that we had a relatively equal breakdown of near shore locations, sewage treatment plant outfalls, tributary locations where tributaries join the main stem and we're sampling at the confluence of those two, and mid-channel. And the mid-channel is like our background signal. So the mid-channel generally is better water quality, there's less influence from the shoreline communities. But the thing that really surprised us about this when we first started to do our reports and look at our data in 2010 for more analysis was this really hot signal we're getting from the tributaries. So this is one of the bad news findings. And when people live in communities like I live in Sleepy Hollow up in Westchester, and you see this turbid Hudson with all the gray water and the things floating in, you think, oh, that's dirty. And then you see a beautiful little stream in your backyard or going through your park in your community, and it's clear, and you think, oh, well, that's great, that's the clean water, that's where I want to be. It's actually not really the case. So this is a picture of a tributary in my community. This is the Mechanical River that flows through Parkland and into the Hudson at Sleepy Hollow. I swim in the Hudson at Sleepy Hollow all the time. It's great. Best part of our summer every year. We swim as much as we can with a beach club in our neighborhood. But when it rains, because I know about wet water influence, I would take my kids to the Mechanical River. And this is one of my kids and their friend in this little floaty playing in the Mechanico after it was a rainy day in the Hudson. And little did I know, until I started to see this data and then started sampling here, that this is what a sampling run looks like on the Mechanical River. This is a dry weather, just a snapshot of one of the days we went out and sampled on this waterway. And you have numbers that hit the limit of our ability to count in terms of fecal contamination in this waterway. So this little study that started in 2010 and another one up in Esopus Creek then got us to do more citizen sampling on tributaries, and we now have 7 tributaries where we do the same study that we do on the main stem, set stations, sampling for Enterococcus, but citizens go out and collect the data, and we're trying to work with the citizens to train them to be clean water advocates and get local solutions in their communities to address their specific local water quality challenges. And one of our partners is the New York City Water Trail Association and River Project. And we've kind of maxed out what we can do with our own incubation and our own lab on these partnerships, but we're hoping to develop more like the Water Trail Partnership, where groups find their own partners that can do the incubation of the samples, and we can help design studies and train people. And if they can find another nonprofit or a college or maybe a county health department to incubate samples for you, we'd be happy to support more citizen sampling. So just to wrap up, these are some of our samplers. Basically, the goals of your citizen sampling study should always start at number 1, to educate. The problem with wastewater infrastructure and fecal contamination in our waters is it's largely invisible unless there is data. It's not like potholes and fallen bridges. So you really need the data to make people realize this is a priority problem. The federal government has reduced the funds that states are receiving for wastewater infrastructure repairs over the past 2 decades by 70%. And there's a current proposal on the table from our House of Representatives to reduce the remaining amount, which is down under $1 billion. It was $2.4 billion in 1987. It was $687 million in 2008, and now they want to cut that by another 70%. So our infrastructure in New York, our wastewater infrastructure, is really behind on its repair schedule. You've got 30% of our facilities are working past their design life, more than twice. These are facilities that were designed to work for 30 to 40 years, and they've been going for 60 years. So even the state recognizes this is a crisis, and we need to educate ourselves, and we need to encourage investment in infrastructure to try to make up this lost ground. And also a very simple thing too is conserving water. The more that we can conserve water, the less we're pumping through our systems, the less wear and tear, the less age on the systems, the less overflow. So that's kind of the easiest, free, cheap thing you could do right now if you did nothing. Oops, I pushed the wrong button. Oh, it's back. People can also be watchdogs. This is what an oil sheen looks like on a waterway over here. This might be from Newtown Creek. This is what a manhole looks like where there's been an overflow. You can see toilet paper and other floatables, as we call them. If you see those around a manhole, you've had an overflow, you can report that. This is some illegal dumping. Someone's kind of come out and thrown something in the street and went down the storm drain. It looks like paint. So if people start to think about what they can look for in the community, these numbers are on my final slide as well. You can report to Riverkeeper, the DEC. If it's something really egregious, like someone's pulling up a truck and dumping tires right now, just call 911 and tell them that you're seeing something and get people there. And finally, I hope that you'll consider supporting Riverkeeper. We have a sign-up sheet in the back. In addition to helping build what we call this citizen army of clean water advocates, which is an ongoing project which really requires boots on the ground. We also do a lot of policy work. We do enforcement and watchdog work ourselves. We were very involved in offering national sewage notification, and we do our own notification when it's not happening from other places. We're involved in the water quality standards review and trying to make that as protected as we can, our next round of standards, and we review permits and plans all the time. So a lot of work. This is a picture of kids jumping into the water graph. So that is it. Thank you.